This week on Extracts, Gene and Chris sitting in a tree, Sucking.
It's the Who Greenlit This episode.
Welcome to Extracts, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files enthusiastic apologist.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a forever slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is, Who Greenlit This?
So we're finally at the quote-unquote worst episode of Star Trek, aka the one where a hot lady steals Spock's brain? What can I say? Do I think this episode is the worst? No. We already did that theme. Do I think it's good? No. We already did that theme too. Is it boring as hell? Yeah, it is. But like all of Star Trek TOS, it is iconic for a reason, so it had to be done. Also, it's the theme of our show. We have to do all of the episodes.
I had to figure out a way. For the X-Files, we are watching just an absolute train wreck with Season 10's Babylon. You know, the one where Mulder does mushrooms in a hospital to stop a terrorism. Are you ready to talk about anything but that? How about dig it in there, Mr. Spock?
Yeah, Spock's brain is just boring. It's not even that bad. Yeah, I'm ready to dig it in there. Mr. Spock, where's your brain? Brain, what is brain?
Brain, what is brain?
All right, now for a quick-ish episode summary. The episode starts en media res as the Enterprise encounters an impressive yet unknown alien ship. The ship isn't recognizing any hails, but hey, you don't have to hail the ship when an alien from the ship beams onto your bridge and knocks everybody out, only to caress a sleeping Spock's head. Dun, dun, dun! When the crew wake up, they are discombobulated, but fine? Well, almost everyone. Bones contacts the bridge and lets the captain know that he has to get to sickbay ASAFP because Spock is mysteriously on life support and doesn't have a brain. Drink every time I say brain. Bones is stunned and confused because the procedure is so advanced that it doesn't make any sense. Luckily, because of his Vulcan physiology, Spock's brain can be kept alive in this state, but only for 24 hours, which means Kirk only has a single day to search the cosmos for this beloved brain. Well, Kirk ain't no dummy, so he knows right away that random woman who beamed on the bridge must have stolen Spock's brain, so he gets the best crew in the fleet to follow the ion trail to the Sigma Draconis system. Only problem is, none of these planets are technologically advanced enough to steal Spock's brain. Uhura notes that Planet 6 has a lot of energy coming from somewhere on the surface, so they beam down to the M-class planet that seems to be in the middle of an ice age. They then encounter a group of wild men who warn Kirk about the others, a.k.a. the givers of pain and delight. Kirk is naturally like, hey, where are the women? And the men are like, what's that? Come on, man. Do the sex math. Soon, Bones beams to the surface with Spock's body that he's turned into a video game. They decide to follow the energy trail and head underground, where they are met with advanced technology and a woman. But she doesn't know anything. She's functionally just a baby in a skirt. But before Kirk can lose his mind, Spock's voice comes over the communicator. He can't tell them where he is, but at least they have confirmation that he is here. Unfortunately, before they can find it, the hot lady from the bridge knocks them the fuck out again. They are brought to the Council of Baby Women, where they all wake up wearing a brand new fashion belt. The women are like, you are not Morg. You are not I Morg. What is brain? Here, have some more fucking pain. They do mention something called the controller, though, that runs the whole baby planet, and Kirk is determined to find who this person is. They escape, naturally, and metaphorically follow the sound of Spock's voice where they find the controller room. They realize that the controller is actually Spock's brain and that he is now effectively a power source for the entire civilization. Seems like that's someone else's problem. But how do we perform the surgery to get this brain back? Well, maybe Bones will just put on his thinking cap, aka the teacher, where he learns temporarily how to perform the most advanced surgery in the galaxy, which he does, but not quickly enough. He starts to lose his way during the surgery, but thankfully he's done enough that Spock, now awake, guides him through the rest of the procedure. Naturally. Spock emerges from the machine with perfect hair and launches into a lecture. All's right in the world. Well, except for the fact that they have basically destroyed the civilization and are now releasing these women to the wolves, i.e. into a literal ice age with a bunch of men. Horrific! Space laughter. This is a horror episode. If you think about it, this is a horror episode. Mm-hmm. If you filmed it from a different angle, their whole civilization is now crumbling, and these women who have been warm and protected are now going to be cold and surrounded by men they can no longer control. That's bad. Kirk was like, yeah, we'll help. Fuck you, dude.
I mean, I guess we don't see that her change goes away. They just kind of
it does go away.
It does.
The teacher, like, it only lasts temporarily. It goes away.
Right. No. We saw that with Bones. Did we see that with the baby woman?
Yeah, that's
okay.
It's like implied.
I completely
their
missed
brains
it.
can only handle so much.
I'm done.
Yeah, it's a very convoluted episode to do a brain in vat scenario.
Yes.
This is like pre-Matrix. They were like, what is it like if we put a brain in a computer and it doesn't know? Because even Spock, when he's talking, is like, I have an endless body. Like,
right,
the brain itself cannot compute that it doesn't have a body anymore, because it still feels like it has a body and it can still talk. And he says your voice is pleasurable, like it's having emotions. Like, it's just the brain in vat scenario, but like done in a 45-minute slot in 1969.
Yeah, it's executed in a way that's strange. I was surprised while I was watching it. I was like, of course I love this episode because I have terrible Star Trek taste. Yeah, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, actually. Like, I mean, part of what I like is that I actually do totally understand why this was the opener, because there's so much Technicolor and it's done very lovingly in Technicolor. Like, that opening scene, the like kicker before the theme comes on, is long. That's a long opener, and is probably one of the longest ones that I have seen, having seen quite a lot of it, actually. Like, and a huge part of that was done without dialogue, and it really felt like, look at our colors. Look at the colors. We are back. Star Trek is here. What's the thing about us?
Which is funny,
lots of fucking colors.
No fucking budget, which was like a huge part of this. And also, I thought this quote was really interesting. This is from Star Trek historian Mark Cushman. He said, quote, knowing Gene Roddenberry's naughtiness when it came to the subject of sex, writer Gene Kuhn's fondness for writing comedy, and Mark Daniels' resume, the comedy episodes, I fully expected they were pulling NBC's corporate leg with this episode, and NBC, seeming to miss the joke, chose Spock's brain to launch the third season. I look at it in the same way as I look at I, Mudd and Trouble with Tribbles as one of Star Trek's occasional comedies, albeit a seemingly less deliberate comedy.
It felt like a deliberate comedy. It was
but it's
weird.
Not funny.
Well, but some of it is the like classic Trek stuff. Like, this will, obviously we'll talk a little about this at the end, but like all of the fainting was so good, and Shatner double rolling while he was fainting the last time. It just like
hey, as somebody
worked.
who has experienced pretty intense nerve pain, sometimes your body twitches twice.
Yeah, but he like threw himself back in the air and then like rolled over and did it again. It felt very much to me like the scene.
Girl, I don't know. Maybe he had shingles, because that's what that feels like.
No, it reminded me of the scene. It reminded me of the scene in Midsummer Night's Dream where Bottom dies like 6 times in a row. It's I die. That felt like Shatner in this, where he was just like flinging himself around,
just trying to fight through the nerve pain.
But that's like, again, it feels very much like this is a season opener. This shows all this stuff about this, and like I get it why it didn't like pan in the same way, but also like I get it. I understand why they were like, this is the one. This is the like eye popper that we're going to start off with.
Leonard Nimoy said, frankly, during the entire shooting of that episode, I was embarrassed. A feeling that overcame me many times during the final season of Star Trek. And then William Shatner said he called it a tribute to the NBC's executives who slashed the show's budget and placed it in a bad time slot. So they're like, here's a bad episode for giving us a bad situation.
That's very funny.
I don't think that on paper, if you describe the episode, you're like, yeah, this is bad, right? But having seen a bunch of Star Trek, is this a good episode? No, it's not. But it's not even, I don't even think it would be bottom 5 for me.
Yeah, truly, the whole episode, I was like waiting for like the America 3Ks propaganda.
Yeah, that's probably the worst one.
Yeah,
I know I said it was Miri. It's really a toss-up. It's like a coin toss between those two for me.
Personally, I think it's the America one because it's so fun until it's just fucking
the America
not.
one and Miri, but Miri's just gross.
Yeah,
it's
Miri's gross icky. The whole time.
It's just icky.
I get it.
I mean, you get good Bones in this episode.
Yeah, Bones
you
is
get some
great
pretty
in
good
this.
Scotty in this episode.
I loved Scotty in this, actually.
Shatner looks fine.
fine as fuck. There are so many shots in this, and I was like, okay, I also understand why they chose this one. And goes, this is doing it for me. There was that shot after they fainted on the bridge where they came back and everyone was like still for a minute. It was just ass, straight Shatner ass, right at the camera. Like, we know what these ladies like. Let's fucking go. They sent us a lot of letters.
100%. Well, they sent letters about Spock. Let's be real.
Yeah, I know.
You get a really competent Uhura.
Yes.
You get them problem solving as a crew on the bridge, which I love. You get Captain Sulu. Mm-hmm. You get Chekhov. Like, it is.
This is the most I've ever liked Chekhov. Not gonna lie, I loved the scene of him and Shatner right up next to each other, which you don't see until it pans out. But I love that they're doing like slapstick comedy where like someone would turn the second they would turn. They did that like 3 or 4 times, and it was like, you are people who have acted on stage and understand what these sight lines look like.
Yeah.
And again, like you guys said, it's camp before we started, and I was like kind of prepared for that. That felt camp. That felt very deliberate about how they were filming it.
Yeah, I think with Tribbles and iMud and like they made a lot more deliberate comedy choices, and this one it's like they couldn't decide if they wanted it to be comedy or serious, and if they had just leaned into the comedy more, like if you watch them in the same succession, the other ones are genuinely funny. This one, there are comedy moments, but they needed to make a choice, and if they had made a choice to make it an actual comedy episode, because this is not considered a comedy episode. If they had to make a choice to do that, I think it would have been much more successful. Because even the end is very funny. Spock coming out, immediately lecturing, like, oh shouldn't have attached his, like, mouth back or whatever. Yeah, it's funny that this is considered the worst. And there's, like, in my notes, there's, like, tons of people being like, this is bad, this is bad. It doesn't have the lowest rating on Internet Movie Database. The lowest ones for Internet Movie Database are This Way to Eden, which is bullshit because the episode rocks.
Which one is that?
The Herbert one, the, like, space hippies.
Yeah, I totally understand why people hate it, but I don't think it's as bad.
And the Children Shall Lead, which does suck. Like, that one actually deserves it. That's the lowest rated TOS episode. The one with the, like, lawyer.
Yes.
So wild. Like, that one is really bad. But then it was interesting doing research for this because, like, I expected everybody to be like, D, bad, worst episode. But there are, in the past, I will say, 5 to 10 years, been a lot of articles written by, like, Sci-Fi and AV Club and other stuff where it's like, this isn't that bad, it deserves another look, it's not even top 5, or it's bad but it's worth watching. So it has, I even found somebody, I didn't write his name down, I feel bad about that, I'll put it in my notes so we can retcon this, but I even found somebody who wrote a whole book about this episode. It was only like 120 pages or something, but it's like a whole book about the making of this episode, because, you know, it is, you know, first coming back, the cultural reception of this episode. So this episode has this, like, mythos of being so bad, and it's just like a B movie. It's like not that bad. It's so weird.
I expected it to be so much worse. Everybody has talked about how bad it is, and like it's not. It really isn't.
It's one of those Star Trek things where people are like, "Oh, William Shatner is a bad actor," and it's like, tell me you haven't really watched Star Trek without telling me you haven't really watched Star Trek.
Yeah, for real. And like, I also understand why they picked this episode, because like, they are getting all of these letters, and this is him, like, chasing his husband. Like, there is a very romantic undertone to this, and, like, it is so clear in this that the only thing more important to him than Spock is the Enterprise, and, like, he is also part of the Enterprise, and, like, I loved that he kept accidentally addressing people as Mr. Spock. It was sweet. Like, the first time he did it, I was like, I love this. And that happened a couple times. And, like, there was a moment on the bridge where they're like, which planet is this? I'm not totally sure. And Kirk goes to talk to him. He, like, moves over to that area and then realizes it's not him. And, like, I loved that. Yeah. And, like,
there's good character work in this episode, which saves a bad episode.
I'm like, I can understand too inside of this that it's a bad episode, but I can also see how, like, it isn't as disappointing to people who are like, I really want these men to fuck. Yeah. Like, I can see how in the beginning it would be like, all right, they're gonna deliver this to us. Like, I do understand that choice.
Well, they still haven't.
What was that?
I just meant, like, it's not canon or whatever. Unless you count unification, which I count.
We do.
We do in this house.
We count unification here. I cried at it. That means it fucking counts.
Yeah, I mean, there was like a bunch of rewrites, but a lot of them are like changing the planet's name, blah, 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 some random Vulcan nonsense. One of the things I thought was really funny, though, and if they had leaned into something like this would have also made it more of that comedy episode. They had a bit where after McCoy completed the brain surgery that he like connected a couple things wrong. So like when Spock went to sneeze, he would like laugh and things like that. So things like little comedy things that they were going to retcon and be like, oh, he just Vulcan disciplined it back to normal. But like things like that would have made it capital F funny instead of like this like weird B limbo that doesn't know if it wants to be a serious episode or if it wants to be a comedy episode. But I don't know. It's the only episode in the original series that has a crew member's name in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Spock's brain. There's no episode that's like Kirk's butt or whatever. It's only one of 5 times that Sulu in the show is seen in the captain's chair, which I think is interesting. We've seen a bunch of them because we watch Errand of Mercy and we watch the Enterprise incident. We have not watched The Lights of Zatar. I do not remember if we've watched The Savage Current. Have we?
I want to source from the great people that listen to this podcast a spec script for the episode Kirk's Butt, where aliens come down and steal Captain
They gotta
Kirk's
steal his
ass.
butt. I'm sure I could find a fanfic.
I wrote down at one point there's gotta be fanfic about Bones moving Spock with the control. Like
I've never read any, but I made a bunch of jokes about it in our script later too. There's gotta be, right? I mean,
You gotta find some.
Yeah.
Put it for the next live tweet.
Cool. I'll try and find it. I mean, I don't know. I can't make, I mean, I could make fic exist if I wanted to write it, but I don't.
How do I keep finding fic that doesn't exist? Dude, this is why I can't get into
because
fic. They don't have what I need.
No, I think the reason that you keep picking fic is because you don't actually read a lot of fic, so you don't understand, and this is not a dig on you, you don't understand a lot of what people en masse gravitate to and what become tropes and things like that, which is fine. That's not a criticism. It's just that you took that language as an elective in freshman year of high school, so you get it, but you don't get it. You know what I mean?
I was literally just about to say the same thing, where like the things that I'm into are not part of the fic community. And truthfully, I think it's just because I don't read when I'm horny. Like, it's not a medium for me that like when I was reading the one
I don't read when I'm horny. I get horny by reading.
Oh, absolutely not something that happens with me.
I read when I'm like, I want to smash my Barbies together and make them have feelings.
I mean, I did that too. It wasn't like
also,
that's a physical thing
I
and
will
not
read
a reading thing.
500,000 words and it had no sex. Like, I'm here for the character development. One of my favorite fics is Bucky and Cap, and they aggressively hold hands, and it's like 180,000 words. It's very good. It's the clownfish AV.
You can't see while you're listening to this the stank face shake head no
well,
that
that's
Erin just gave
People
to that.
think that fic is just about sex, and it's really not. Like,
And
there's
again,
a
I think
huge
that's
part
why-
about it.
Exactly.
That
I
is
think that's why I
sex.
don't like it. Not that I don't like it. It just it's not a thing that I gravitate toward.
I read and
I'm not
watch
looking-
explicitly for characters. Like,
Yeah.
that's I could give 2 shits about your plot. Unless you break the rules of your own plot, and then I will freak
and
out.
then you will freak out.
I will freak the fuck out.
Listen, to each their own. I respect it. I wish that I had more that I was into. Just not. It's just not for me. Too weird, I guess.
You're too weird, or it's too weird?
No, I'm too weird. I thought that was clear.
You don't want to see them. You don't want to read a 50,000 word fic of Spock and Kirk stranded on an alien planet and having to work together to survive.
No.
And then maybe on a cold night they like get a little closer together. Oh, anyways.
Past a certain amount of yearning, I'm like, come on, let's get real.
See,
here.
honestly, that's probably
Come
why
on.
you don't like fanfic. That is more than sex. Pining is honestly, I would say pining is more important in a fic community than sex is.
Well.
There's literally like fic giving, like in the supernatural fandom, there's like a I don't know what they're called. I do know what they're called. I just can't think of it. You'll do like this month will be you like Septober is where you do like each day you get a prompt to do a supernatural thing. Each fandom usually has it, and then it's like a fic economy where you're like, I'm going to write this thing and share it, and they're like, God, what is the word? Fuck, it's not like a contest. It's like a time where you can submit and like you'll be like, I'm going to write this, and then you'll get like assigned an artist, and then you collaborate, and then you release it on a schedule. Anyways, there's one in Supernatural fandom called Pine Fest, and it's literally just about pining. It's just like 50,000 plus words of pining. What is the word that I'm thinking of? Some fandom person is listening to this and bashing their head in. And I am also bashing my head in. It's like a call for fix, but it's not like that. It's like a specific, whatever. Anyways, there are things like that. Where you get like, or a hurt comfort thing, or anyways, that's probably why you don't like fic. That's the number one reason you don't like fic, because pining is more important than sex.
Yeah, well, that's why it's fiction.
There are a bunch of like songs or bands inspired by this episode. There's a Swedish synth pop band called Spock, S.P.O, etc. That has a song, Mr. Spock's Brain.
I've listened to that.
5-year Mission album. Fish has a song called Spock's Brain. So there's that. The band Fish.
I'm aware of Fish, all right? I smoke a lot of weed.
I do not. So like, I mean, the biggest apocrypha thing is that it's just, everybody thinks it's really, really bad, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Oh, we also didn't talk about...
I can understand being embarrassed filming this.
Oh, when
fucking Leonard Nimoy just walking around like a ding dong.
It's the worst episode possible for him. I totally get it. He really, really made chicken salad out of chicken shit with this one, because he was fine. It wasn't bad. It was just
he has
like,
a nice moment at the end.
Yeah, he has this like it's funny too, because I like that it was very human and not very Vulcan. That he was like excited and he was like joking a little bit. It's also like a different kind of Spock, but it didn't feel creepy like the other times where he smiles and you're like, you're gonna murder me. Like, this felt very genuine, which I liked a lot. I was gonna say, we didn't talk about one of the things I loved about the women is that they were all wearing a uniform. Like, all of them had the exact cut. It was just styled a little differently, or like the patterns were different, but like they all had the same style boots on too, and it worked. It was a really, really good thing that like sometimes Star Trek does like a women costume that across several people where
there
it's
are
like,
imorgs.
Sure, yeah, whatever. Humanoids, who gives a shit? Like, baby people, it doesn't matter. Like, I like that the consistency of it worked really well, especially like, I know that there's not a lot of money at this point too, so it's like, we're gonna buy this cut pattern and we're gonna do it 8 times in a row. Like, I thought that worked very well.
It also like reinforces that they're a civilization that doesn't make choices, that they are kept alive by a computer who probably is like chooses what to wear for them, or like, you know, what to eat, when to eat, tells them what to do, like, because they are functionally, like Bone says it, they're functionally children and that are being taken care of by this computer. Which I think that's how Kirk justifies like the Prime Directive, because he's like, your growth was stunted because a different whatever came in and introduced this technology, and so it stunted the growth on your planet. So I'm actually a savior by like coming in and taking this element out, et cetera, which totally like undercuts the civilization that like forms after that. You know, 2 wrongs don't make a right, et cetera.
Yeah, it was weird because we were talking about, oh, it's a computer, so Kirk wants to murder it. He didn't really. He left it. Like, they could still use the old brain until it dies. They said
the brain did die.
It did? I thought.
Yeah, the brain is no more. They needed another one.
Oh.
So Kirk is like, well, we'll come in and help, but you can't have this brain. I don't know. I feel like they should have put out a call. I feel like some Vulcan probably would think it would be really interesting to be in that computer.
Oh, 100%.
And help that society. There's got to be one Vulcan on the planet who is interested in that. Because, like, functionally, again, brain and vat, they still are them. They just don't have their actual body. So it's not like, theoretically, at least in the rules of the show, because Spock still had his personality, all of that stuff. So it wouldn't be a death. It would just be like a transformation or whatever. And also they said that like they live for like 10,000 years. You can't tell me that there's not one Vulcan that would think that would be an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if, in absence of his relationship with Captain Kirk, Spock would have just done it himself.
Yeah.
We've talked about his vanity in the past. We just, in our book club, read a comic book where Spock basically is like, I could be president and solve this in 2 hours. So I think he definitely would have, if not for his more earthly pullings, relationships, whatever.
Child of 2 worlds.
Yeah, no, I think that if you really wanted to save Spock, because like it is ethically wrong that they did it without consent, et cetera, I do believe that in the vast world of the Federation, and I'm just presupposing that you need a Vulcan brain. So maybe you can't use a human brain, but maybe you could use an Andorian brain. Maybe you could use a Romulan brain. Romulans would not go for it. Never mind. But I don't know. Maybe they would because of immortality. It doesn't matter. But then they would ruin the society in a different way. I'm just saying. The actual most ethical thing to do would be to put out a call to bring in a different brain, because that society is a new society. Like, yeah, I don't know. Kirk's definition of the Prime Directive is
loose,
not great.
They're more like guidelines.
Yeah, so that, and then again, honestly, the thing that, and I made a joke about it up top, but like the thing that I can never get over it when this episode ends is like, you know, just living in the world that we live in, the idea that these like baby women, these women who rely on their technology to like save them, frankly, are now not going to have that technology, are going to have to figure out how to live in an ice age, and also are going to be surrounded by men who view them as enemies. They are the others. They are the bringers of pain and delight, but they are the bringers of pain. So now you're taking away their defense mechanisms and you're releasing them to the people who hate them.
I don't understand why they couldn't stay down there. There's a whole fucking city down there.
Because the brain runs the air, runs the machines. If you don't have the brain to power the city, then the city shuts down and then you just die underground. Like their choice is to go up onto the ice age.
They need to do like the Mayans and just be like, you're the brain for the next 12 hours or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it is actually, yay, they get their friend back and it's a funny episode. It's awful actually for those women. Mm-hmm. They really ruined all of those women's lives. I like need a follow-up that's like, and everything was fine and they all weren't like sexually assaulted and murdered and put into like gender slavery. Like I cannot imagine a world in which the horrors do not ruin that society in a different way. And maybe that's just because of the state of the world we live in, but like that seems horrific.
Yeah, not good. It's not good.
It does, like in a way that's not. It does have parallels to me for Angel 1, which is the Riker episode where he goes to the planet that is the shitty matriarchy. But at least in that planet, the women are physically bigger and stronger and can protect themselves, and like that the whole plan. Angel 1 is bad. If we were doing TOS, that might be my worst episode. It's Riker goes to a planet where it's like a matriarchy, but it's just like our patriarchy, which like the women were bigger and stronger, and so then they like, you know, et cetera, and they're trying to make a statement about like gender equality, but it doesn't work at all. Not even a little bit. But it's interesting whenever Star Trek tries to do that. So far they like it. They're trying to like challenge the binary, but like by making it extra binary.
Yeah, I will say about this episode, there was a lot of sexism. Like,
deep.
Capital letters sexism in a way that I was like, they don't normally do this. It was weird too.
Yes, I did notice their delights.
Yeah, it was just like over and like really blatant, women can't do this. Like having them be like, take me to the leader, the manager, and she's like, it's literally me, and they were like, no, like who makes decisions here? It was just like, wow, this is sexist.
And they like enforce that by being like they are children, and like it's clear that the men on the planet or the Morgans on the planet are also like not developed, so it's like a societal thing. But yeah, like when you're like, they're trying to make a statement, maybe they just thought it would be interesting, or I don't know. Maybe they had a woman they wanted to cast and they were like, I don't know, we'll make her it's just like there's so much that they're doing and none of it really works, which is why this episode doesn't work. But it's not like if I was just having Star Trek play in the background, this episode came up, I don't know if I would skip it. Yeah, I would just be like, whatever, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah, I would watch it again.
But the end is rough, man. It's like nobody ever talks about that when they talk about Spock's brain. They're like, oh, it's silly concept, and like, oh, Spock's brain gets stolen. The real part about this is that society is fucked, and those women are fucked.
Kirk does that to tons of places.
Yeah, but this one feels so lopsided. Like when you ruin a whole society, but everybody's like suffering. Like this is just one half of the society. You're like, this is bad for you.
Yeah, I can't. The one that immediately pops into my head is the Native American one where he gets a woman pregnant and then just leaves that society to fucking die. Like, that one for me it feels much more than this one, but I totally understand what you're saying.
But with that one, he does follow, like, obviously his brain gets fucked, but they do follow the Prime Directive in that one, in that they don't tell the society what they're doing.
Yeah, but I thought they weren't supposed to do, like, anything.
No, that's not what the Prime Directive is. The Prime Directive is you can go and muck around on a planet as long as they don't notice that you're mucking around on the planet.
Oh, I thought the whole thing was about technology, that you weren't allowed, like, that part of the Prime Directive is you can, like, be down there as, like, a scientific watcher, like, they don't see you, but, like, you cannot advance their society past the place that they are.
Yeah,
right?
but they don't do that in that one. They just don't fix a machine.
The Native American one?
Yeah.
No, he, like, teaches them how to, like, do all kinds of shit.
But he was not aware of that. That's why he's not breaking the Prime Directive. He
That
had
wasn't
amnesia.
Kirk, that was Key Rock.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that was Key Rock.
That makes sense.
So he wasn't, like, willingly and actively
Got it,
breaking
okay.
the Prime Directive.
Got it. Okay.
Just slight difference. I mean, he was breaking it, but it's different.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whatever. Prime Directive, it is what it is.
It's messy.
It's a
what it
good
seems like.
idea that no captain follows. Name a captain that follows it. I can't. I truly cannot.
Not a captain, not a like lead actor captain in a main role in a series. They all at some point obliterate the Prime Directive. Arguments can be made for Janeway, who is out in the Delta Quadrant.
She's like,
and
what is a Prime Directive out here?
there are no rules out here. I have literally made this ship with terrorists. Like,
Yeah.
But other than that, like, there's no argument for any captain
anybody
upholding the
else.
Prime Directive. No.
They all have their own justifications for their own nonsense.
Who doesn't?
That's fair. That's true. Synopsis showdown.
Yes.
I mean, I literally just said all of this stuff. Kirk ruins an entire civilization to save Spock, sensing a pattern developing here.
These men are getting their husband back, you dumb woman.
Yeah. Are you ready for Scully? It's me. Come honky tonk with me. They should have played
No, they shouldn't have.
Boots
No,
Good
they
Boogie.
didn't.
I am
Hard
so
stop.
happy that they did not sully the good word of Boots Scootin' Boogie
Good Boogie.
with this fucking episode.
Hello? Anyone down here?
Nobody but the FBI's most unwanted. I've been waiting 23 years to say that.
How'd it feel?
Pretty good.
Here's an episode summary. Can you believe it? This episode starts racist as fuck, and it does not get better from there. There's a very racist suicide bombing that leaves a man in a coma. In DC, we meet a very aggressive skeptic and a young stick-in-the-ass, the series' latest attempts to replace Scully and Mulder. They're off to investigate the bombing in Texas, but Mulder is like, hey, sup, Einstein? A truly atrocious Chris Carter abomination of a name. I think I'll maybe go with you. I bet we can do some like really dubious quote quote detective work, because Miller and Scully are like, you know what? We should maybe team up and head to Texas and don't tell our old partners. Anyway, there's some racism in the hospital where a nurse tries to kill the terrorist in a coma. This is a fucking comedy episode. Some fucking how, Mulder decides to do mushrooms in the hospital to try to communicate with the comatose suicide bomber. We get an insane montage of him out line dancing, because Texas, wearing ridiculous rings and generally not doing any fucking thing to solve a very serious crime. Then there's a racist part of the dream where the suicide bomber whispers something in Mulder's ears while being cradled like Jesus by his mother. Mulder wakes up just in time for the man to die, and wouldn't you fucking know it, Mulder remembers what he said to Miller, who speaks Arabic out of fucking nowhere, translating it. Hooray! It's a hotel where there's more racism happening. This episode sucks and it's really fucking stupid and racist, but Mulder and Scully do hold hands and talk about God. So you know what? I guess at least there's fucking that. How did you feel about this episode?
Hot take. This
No.
episode would have worked if it was a white supremacist shooter and not a Muslim terrorist bombing.
Yes, I agree that it would have. And also has the same problem as your episode. Cannot decide if it's a horror episode, if it's a psychological episode, if it's a comedy episode. It's like, Chris.
Okay. So the writing is obviously really, here's how, because I didn't hate this episode, but here's like my breakdown of it. One, Chris Carter, bad at writing. Chris Carter, ideas man. Not a writer.
Yeah, you're right.
And like I feel like by this time he should have accepted that.
Chris
ideas,
Carter will
man,
never accept anything.
you can have great ideas and not be great at execution, and that's why you have a team, right? Like, he's an ideas man, not a writer, because anytime in this episode when he tried to do moral philosophy or like, you know, all we need is love or whatever, it's just taking a fucking hammer and smashing it into your face. And not that the sentiment is bad, or like there are a couple lines that are bangers for sure, but it's just too heavy-handed. So it becomes, when the audience can, it's like for me, when I watch a Pixar movie, like, you can't manipulate me like that. I'm not stupid. And I feel like this is, I really don't like Pixar movies, you guys. That's a hot take. Oh, are they an orphan at the top? Fuck you. Everybody's an orphan in this universe? Fuck you. Just want to make me cry?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
That's the fucking-
Yeah, you can't manipulate me like that. I refuse to be manipulated by Pixar. Anyways. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. No, it makes sense when you're like, you're being so heavy-handed and over the top because you're trying to elicit an emotional reaction, but you're not actually doing the work to get to that. It's the show don't tell thing. This is just like showing and being like, aren't you having feelings? Isn't the world a bad place? But we could fix it if we were just nice to each other. Like, I get it, but like, let's be a little bit more clever here. So like, that's bad. Chris Carter, whatever. Again, I do think that this could have been fixed by like changing the lens. 2016 is too late to be doing a 24 style terrorist attack. Like, too late. And I know that this is, like you said, this is where the fox really comes out. Like, it is on Fox. This is where the fox really comes out. Like, it's too late to be doing this. Yeah. So that part, and also really, Chris Carter really thought, I complained about this, but he really thought he was doing something with like naming the art gallery that they blew up Ziggurat, and then being like the hotel that they're staying at was Babylon. Like, no. Denied. That's bad. That's stupid and bad.
It's also, it doesn't hit the mark on some of it. I mean, a lot of the racism is so racist. It's obviously over the top. It's supposed to be like, this is ridiculous that someone would be this casually racist, which is weird in 2025 because it is just like,
oh yeah, the scene where the like car pulls up alongside him and like says racist things, like, that feels real.
Yeah,
that
that's
feels
a very today
so
thing.
that's the thing. That's the problem with this episode, is because some of the racism in this episode does feel emblematic of how people act. And so when I'm not trying to justify this episode at all, but like, if you're showing, and that's the thing that they're interrogating in this episode, is like, why would somebody do this? So if you're showing this person constantly being treated like shit by like white people, and then also getting into like, you know, what's the thing that Agent Einstein says, like, they're all talking about like, what is the weight of words and things like that. So like, some of that stuff is real, and like, you can't shy away from the real racism to have the like cartoon, like, and only have the cartoonish racism. So I don't know, there's that. And also like, I hate that I am grateful for this, because like, this is such a low bar, but it is nice that we see at least one Muslim person not a terrorist. Which in a show like 24 we don't, right?
Like basically never.
So we see his mom come in and be like, no, this is not what Allah, like, I taught you that Allah believes, like, you let these men, you know. And so we have this like really humanizing moment of Shiraz and his mom. And I think that I think that moment is the reason why I could watch this episode again, because it, in so many shows like this, that moment is missing. Again, 2016 is way too late to be doing like a Fox 24 style terrorism episode, I think, without any more nuance. There's more nuance here than there has been in the past, but like, it should have been a white supremacist with a gun, like, if they wanted to do this episode, like, because it literally works completely the same. It works completely the same. They just have to take a couple, you know, that you could have the newscasters arguing still. You could have, it works completely the same and feels more, even in 2016, feels more relevant, more, you know, especially in 2016. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I both agree and also disagree with 2016. Like, that, the cartoonishness is also as our culture started to become Trump. Like, that's part of it, is that it reflects that. And I don't think that a white supremacist one would have struck the same at the same time, because I think a lot more people were still deeply in denial about how much white supremacist
Right. That's
action
why
is
I
everywhere.
think, but
Which
okay.
I think it would work today way better with
But I
that.
think that it would have been I still think it would have been a stronger choice, because like that was still there. And so if you're making like if you're a writer and trying to make a stronger, more clever choice, that stuff still exists. You didn't even have to say white supremacy. You could just do like your fucking, incel or whatever,
Yeah.
which I know, like Venn diagram, etc. Like you don't have to say the words white supremacist for this to work. And there's been gun violence in our country for such a long time. I feel like it would have been a way more interesting. It wouldn't have been so tired, and I think it would have made this episode work a lot better. Because like there are things I like about this episode. I love crazy ass old Mulder.
Oh my God, he's just the best.
I love old ass crazy Mulder.
This is like the most Mulder you get in the back seasons too. It's Mulder.
I didn't hate the two. I mean, it's super heavy handed, and like again, Chris Carter's a bad writer, but I didn't hate like the younger versions of them. I thought like Lauren Ambrose is a good actor. This was written very poorly, so like she did the best she could, but I thought that the Amel kid was good, and I thought that the like switching of the partners was really interesting. The drug scene is fun. Like it's stupid and it's fun. Like you have to admit, even if you hate this episode, it is silly and fun. And him waking up with Skinner just being like, "You dumb bitch," incredible. And also Skinner just being like, not even that mad. He's just like, whatever. Let's just get in a wheelchair. Let's go. Like, which is indicative of like their season or their like relationship throughout the seasons. You get that good Mulder Scully stuff. I am a slut for like interrogating like religious feelings and characters. I'm a Daredevil girly, so like Scully's whole thing really like I love it. So you get that. It's just such clunky writing, and then you throw in the like blatant racism that like ruins the message that they're right. You could have just done so many different things to have the same episode. And I'm focusing on the like white supremacist thing, but like you could have just done so much, so something different. It didn't have to be the capital T like terrorism. Oh, these kids have pictures of Osama bin Laden on there. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a crazy. I'm sorry, it's not lazy. That's not crazy. It's lazy. That's lazy. And like Bobby was saying, like you X-Files fans are waiting for years for this. You get an announcement that season 10's coming. There's only 6 episodes, and then this is one of the episodes. Like how insulting.
Oh,
how deeply insulting.
You haven't seen the My Struggle episodes.
But like this felt like an episode he wrote years ago and then just punched up for 2016, and that sucks.
Yes, I would totally agree with that.
But it's hard. Like it is really bad. Who greenlit this? They should have run it. But like there are a lot of elements in this that I enjoyed. Like that again, we just said earlier, I'm a character focused reader and watcher, and so like there are really great Mulder and Scully moments that make it watchable, even though it's like it's offensive in its assumption that the people that are watching are fucking stupid.
Yes.
That'll make me hot more than anything. If you as a show writer or an author do not respect my intelligence as a viewer or reader, then I'm pissed. And that's what this feels like.
Yeah, I think part of it is that this sounds so mean, but like you're just smarter. That's part of it. And like there is definitely a section of people who watch X-Files who are Fox viewers. Like it is on Fox, and also they're just like it used to be in the 90s and the early 2000s. There are people who just watch Fox and let this come on. And so I think that's part of it too, is there is a correct assumption that a lot of the people viewing this do actually need the heavy-handed stuff and sometimes can't recognize that it's satire, but at the end get this very humanizing moment with the mom too. And so it's like, I understand what you were trying to do here. However, I'm an X-Files fan who's been around a lot longer and doesn't need this.
Yeah,
at
like,
all.
Thinking about the theme of this episode, like who greenlit this, like who's to say? I mean, I guess there is an argument to be made and be like maybe the message has to be heavy-handed because of like we're acknowledging the network we're on. We're so grateful that we have the season. So like, I mean, this is the season that has the episode with the drag queens and stuff, right? Shangela's in this season.
Oh yeah, that's the Weremonster one.
But that's the season, right?
Yes, yeah.
So
Weremonster is this season.
They're doing an episode with a transgender person, which they don't handle amazing, but they're still putting it on Fox. So like, I don't
and
know.
are ultimately respectful of her and
Yeah.
like do treat her correctly. It's just that they're
Yeah, so I think maybe
old.
there's an argument to be made that they're like trying to like squeeze in socialist liberal messages in this, but that's also giving them a lot of credit that I don't know if I want to give them.
Chris Carter also is just like, let me get some weed inside of me and we'll figure out how to make this work. And sometimes he doesn't make it work. And that's what this one is.
Yeah, I think I may be like giving them more credit than they deserve right here.
Some of it.
Yeah, I don't know. So like you guys were both like, it's so bad, it's so bad, it's so bad. And like it is, but it also isn't.
I get it.
That's the theme of this episode, is that these episodes are bad. But like there's a reason why we didn't pick these for the worst. Like we do have a show, we do have an episode show that is called The Worst, and these were not picked for that. So there is some watchability to them. I've been talking for a long time.
No, that's okay. That's great. That's part of this, right? Is it's interesting to hear someone who's new to the fandom be like, I have a lot of thoughts that are specific about the nuance
My
of this.
number one thought is that there needed to be more Skinner in a cowboy hat.
He looked fine as hell.
Mitch Pulitzer looks
fine as hell.
like, you cannot understand my like deep visceral attraction to him or whatever. And I can see sometimes in the 90s episodes, everybody's looking very 90s. But in season 10 and 11, he is fucking hot. And you cannot deny that. His beard is perfect. Like, his skin is like glowing. This man is fine.
Yes, it's true. It's funny. I was thinking while we were watching it, like, again, part of this project is like also learning new things about your own fandom through another person's eyes. And there was a moment where I was like, yeah, you really changed my mind about Skinner. You like legitimately, especially you're right. In seasons 10 and 11, I'm like, you know what? He is pretty fucking hot. All right, I've come around
Skinner
on
with
it.
like a beard.
Yeah, and again, I like it when he does violence. I'm like, yeah, that's hot. Okay, I think I'm into it.
I like it when he does violence.
You
Yeah.
like the elevator scene? Who
God,
among us
no,
didn't?
I was laughing because it's a funny thing to say. I obviously I have a meme in my phone that I created, and it says men covered in blood got to be one of my favorite genders. Like, and come on, like.
All right, well, that we agree on.
Remember the one time I thought David Duchovny was hot is when he was like covered in dirt and blood, and I was like, I get this. Though I will say, again, I'm not attracted to David Duchovny. I have like such a weird soft spot for crazy old Mulder. I love old Mulder a lot. There's just something so funny about, and I think it's indicative of like what we know about David Duchovny too, and like having read some of his books and like you listen to his podcast sometimes, like there's just an acceptance with age that like comes through with Mulder, where he is just like, he's been through so much, he's seen so much, and he's still like, this isn't a bit, it's just like what I believe and who I am, and I don't have to defend it anymore. You can come in here and make fun of me for being like in the X-Files, but like A, my close rate is crazy, and B, like I'm chill with this. Also, I gave this office a fresh coat of paint. It looks pretty nice down here.
Yeah.
It's pretty well organized. I got my posters up. Like, do you have an office as big? No.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good about my basement corner office. And there's just like a deep acceptance of like himself, his beliefs, what he's been through, his feelings with Scully. Like, he's still questioning things regardless of the acceptance, but that's like part of who he is. And I don't know, there's something very wonderful to me about old Mulder that I love. So
I love it, because most people would not come to know Mulder, because you saw old Mulder pretty early in this project too, and so I think that that's part of it. Sort of like how you saw Hollywood AD, where it's like you get the best of Skinner. You're getting 100% the best of
I don't know.
fucking
I think
Skinner.
the Nanites episode is the best because he's like naked a lot.
That's true. I mean, there
Isn't his tidy whities in that one? So like,
there's so much.
So vascular.
his boxing. You put a man I think is hot in a boxing ring. You put a person I think is hot in a boxing ring. Over curtains.
Your love of Walter Skinner is just the best. It makes me so happy. I'm so glad I could bring this to your life.
We have to. I don't remember what episode is the first episode that we saw. I want to go back and listen to it of like me being like, okay, we can't talk about anything until we talk about this man.
Oh, hilarious. I love it so much. There is almost no Apocrypha in this episode, thank God. The big one, Bobby and I talked about this earlier, is that the lone gunmen are in this. This is the first time we've seen them since...
Are they dead at this point?
Yes, they're dead at this point. Have been dead for a while.
Also, this is a canon question or whatever. When Mulder is like the lone gunman were there, does Skinner know who the lone gunmen are?
Oh, yes.
Okay, but he
very
knows
much
that they're called the lone gunmen because that's like
You've seen them all in the same room together.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that does he know who they are.
He knows that.
But if they like,
he knows that they call
that
themselves
their
that.
club name. Do they
well,
know
'cause
their club name?
That's
Okay.
what
I couldn't remember.
The name of their paper is the
Oh,
Lone
that's right.
Gunman. And so, like, Skinner knows what that is, obviously. And he's read Mulder's insane report.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
that's part
true.
of it.
It's just a moment where I was like, does he know who that is?
He knows what that is, and he knows they're dead. That's part of, like,
Incredible.
and you were there, and you were there.
Also, did she actually give him placebos, or did she give him mushrooms and then said that she gave him placebos?
Gave him mushrooms. I think when
Yeah.
she's rolling him out,
she
it's
gave
pretty
him
clear.
mushrooms and then said that they were placebos,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, she was like, okay,
Yeah, because
well,
when she
you
pulled
fucked
out the
my
pills,
life.
I was like, those are a different color, which is a nice touch.
Mhm.
They're like slightly darker.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the Lone Gunmen announced months in advance.
Because they wanted people to tune in to see their guys.
Yes, and then people were pissed.
Because they did nothing.
Yeah, it's just flashes of them inside of this, like, mushroom
the lone
trip.
gunman return.
Yeah, it's like...
Terrible.
Exactly. And so it was...
I would be pissed.
Yeah, and a lot of, like, season 10 and 11 are dumb in many ways, but a lot of it are love letters to the fans, too. They do try really hard sometimes to, like, hey, like... Darren Morgan wrote the episode, the were monster one, like stuff like that. It is good when they call back to that, but like sometimes they call back to stuff that just is like does not work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was something that they did. Here's a fun note. So their appearance nearly canceled because Dean Haglund, the one with the long blonde hair, they couldn't find him. No clue where he was. Straight up, couldn't fucking find him. They were
He
like,
said, I'm good.
Yeah, he just like dipped. He took his money and was like, "You send me my residuals. I'll see you fucking later." And so he dipped. And they found out later he was living in Australia. Probably why they couldn't find him. But they found out because he fucking was at a convention in Connecticut, and they were like, "You! Oh my god, we've been looking for you." So that is how the Lone Men come to be as part of this episode too, which I think is a hilarious little bit about it.
Great.
Reception, not great. It's not. It was not great. Babylon was met with mixed reviews, sort of like you have from critics who were like, there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of, Islamophobia in this episode.
Blatant,
Yes.
bad Islamophobia.
And, like, it's negative of their portrayal in Muslims and Islamic beliefs. And, like, it is. Like, the complaints about that are true because that is what this episode is. There's just a ton of racism. Like, it is hard to get past that. The sloppy Babylon represents an unfortunate stumble, but Mulder and Scully's interactions still offer fans enough incentive to tune in. So, like, exactly like you were saying, basically.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, too, Bobby made this really good point. We were talking about it, that he's like, Mulder's line's like, yeah, I heard he talked to me, but I don't speak Arabic. Like, what a dumb fucking whatever. And he, is trying to parse it out later. And then he comes up with Babylon, and Bobby was like, this dude is so into... We literally watched him give a monologue about quoting Revelations. This dude is so plugged into, like, religious iconography and stuff. Like, the fact that he had to struggle for Babylon is dumb.
Yeah.
And breaks the role of your character.
It's very out of his character. I totally agree.
We didn't even talk about the trumpets. Also, the trumpets are bad. The trumpets are bad. If they are heralding the end of the world. If you hear it, so at the end when they're having this nice moment, he's like, "Did you hear that? That's not a great sign."
You said something.
It's not a magical like, oh, God's just giving you a high five. Like, no, God is saying, run.
Only he can hear it because Scully's immortal. She's like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. End of the world, I'll still be here.
God said, I sent you back. You can stay.
You can't come here. You don't belong. Satan's like, you've beaten my ass too many times. You're not allowed to come here either. You said after that happened, if Scully can't hear it too, that's a stroke.
Like, did you hear it? The trumpets aren't good. He's like, oh, wow, I can hear the trumpets.
Oh, man.
Be afraid.
Here's a surprise. Zach Handlin, our guy, rare miss, actually really liked it. Said it was dumb enough to really like it.
See, I understand that response. Mm-hmm. Like, Obviously, you can't take the Islamophobia out of it.
Impossible.
It is there. But if you could, there's a lot to like about this episode.
Mm-hmm. It could be a great comedy episode. Same thing with Spock's brain. Like, if they had just committed to making it a comedy episode, I think it could have worked very well. But the Islamophobia is, it's like grains of sand. It's impossible to unmix them.
Yeah, 100%. But that's why when you're talking about it, it's like, well, but this part was pretty good, or like I see what this, and I like this part, but the Islamophobia, right? Like you can never say it's a good episode. I can understand somebody saying it's watchable.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree with that. That's nice. This episode of this podcast made me feel better about Babylon. I don't feel like, all right, you know what? There are some good things in here. I won't dread it on a rewatch. Am I going to watch it again? No, I'm not.
Yeah, I don't think you need to.
Well,
You could
enough.
watch the drug scene and then the end scene and truly skip all of the horrific parts.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I do like the scene of Lauren Ambrose wheeling him out in the hospital. I guess that counts as drug stuff too.
And I like the relationship between Einstein and Miller.
All right, synopsis showdown.
Sure. I did not write a good one, and I apologize in advance.
This is a bad episode. It's not surprising. All right, what happens when you try to do comedy and racism at the same time?
Chris Carter really thought he was doing something.
Good job.
Are you ready for
Deep Throats. Mission logs.
I forgot what it's called.
A remarkable example of a retrograde civilization, at the peak, advanced beyond any of our capabilities, and now operating at this primitive level which you saw.
Okay, starting with Spock's brain. First aired the 20th of September, 1968. Accredited director Mark Daniels, his last for the series. Accredited writers, Roddenberry, of course, because he was somewhere in the genesis of all of these stories.
He's not.
Arthur Singer and mostly Gene L. Kuhn under a pseudonym. Not because he was disgusted by this episode, as some articles say, but because he was not allowed to
like
work
Writers
for
Guild
Paramount
stuff,
right now
Yeah.
because he was under contract with Universal.
Yeah. Also, this isn't like season 3. Gene Roddenberry's not like as heavily involved with stuff. So some people were like, maybe this episode would have been better. Gene was more there. Our bumper, we said Gene because of Gene Elkin and Gene Roddenberry. It works. Hey. But there is like apocrypha that people are like, oh, we really suffered because Gene wasn't there.
Yeah. I mentioned this was Mark Daniels' last episode. He, along with the rest of the cast, fucking hated what Paramount did to the show's budget and time slot. So that's why he left. He comes back to write One of Our Planets is Missing, a animated series episode.
We should do the animated series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's some good, like the animation is very of its time, but there are some like legitimately well-written episodes.
I've seen the one with Spock's pet.
Yeah, that one's really good.
I like that a lot.
In the beginning of the episode, notably, you see a shot of the whole bridge, and you see crew members walking in front of the view screen that has moving stars on it. It's the only time this happens in the series. Of course, they do it with a back projector. You see, I think, a scene earlier where someone walks in front of the view screen, but the image is static.
Technology.
They were doing the best with what they had.
Yeah.
Of course, the controller, creature, monster, computer, whatever it is, that is just our old friend Nomad from the Changeling with a globe on top of it. And also, Erin, your praise for those costumes on the women. 1-to-1 based off of the overall vibe of Laugh-In, but specifically how Goldie Hawn is portrayed in Laugh-In.
Hell yeah.
Both in costume and in the mood of the baby women throughout. That was kind of where they were pulling all of that vibe from.
Yeah, their hair looks great.
Yeah. Stell's point of this kind of being a joke towards the Paramount executives, Shatner just kind of states that straight out in his 2008 biography, Up Till Now.
I read that in 2008, and I remember liking it, but I don't know what it...
Said.
It's one of the
Yeah,
only biographies I've ever read. I hate biographies.
You really, truly do.
I don't care about you. Oh, you're a celebrity? Cool, interesting. Go do a movie.
Right. Do
Read
anything other
biographies
than
of
be a celebrity.
anyone else.
No, I will refuse to read biographies.
Madman and the Librarian is really good. It's about how the dictionary was created. It's really good.
I'll watch a documentary.
I recommended Banana to you, and I was right.
Banana is not a biography. Banana is a nonfiction book. That is different. I'll read a nonfiction book.
I'm just saying.
I
I
don't
recommended
care.
a nonfiction book you liked. I can probably find a biography
Yeah,
that
we
you
also
like.
recommended Manhunt, and I thought it was boring.
That's fair.
I don't care about celebrities and their feelings. That's all.
That Manhunt is a book about
I know.
fucking James. I'm telling
Also,
the people
not
who
a
are
biography.
listening.
Not a biography. That is a nonfiction book. I'm just saying you've recommended a nonfiction book I like and one that I don't like. I am also saying I just don't like biographies because I don't care about celebrities and their feelings.
You're reading the wrong biographies. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Bobby, do you have more to say? Okay, go ahead.
July 11th, 1968. So while they were shooting this, there was a psychologist named Benjamin Spock who was sentenced to prison after encouraging draft evaders and claiming the Vietnam War to be anti-constitutional. So he was right. But because this was happening at the time they were shooting, there's a funny backstage clip of Leonard Nimoy holding up a newspaper that says, in handcuffs with a handgun pointed at him, that says Spock gets 2-year prison term. These fucking children on this set. Notably, Ronald D. Moore, who worked extensively on these shows as well, said this episode was tolerable, but also second weakest to, in his opinion, The Lights of Zatar. He said this one was campy fun to get you through it, whatever it
The Lights of Zatar is boring.
Yeah, it's just boring. That's its crime.
It's so boring.
And then kind of to answer your question of like, I need something else here to learn that they were okay. Extended fandom, they do not touch iMorgs. Star Trek never comes back to this in any way.
Yeah. I don't think they survived the Ice Age.
Casting stuff here, the main story that I found in casting stuff here is, other than the central cast for Star Trek, there's only 3 credited guest individuals in this, when it is just full of people. Running down some notable uncredited people, which you'll recognize because we've talked to them a bunch in the show. William Blackburn as Hadley, Fred Carson, Frank Da Vinci, Roger Holloway, Pete Kellett. These are all, Gina Malone as the human here. These are all background people we've talked about that were just around Trek. But like these huge fight scenes or whatever, all of those security guards, science crew women, those are all uncredited and we don't know who they are.
We also didn't talk about
crazy.
that fight scene. It was really good.
Yeah.
That was a really good
Great
fight
fight
scene.
scene.
They executed it very well.
So one of those 3 people that I talk about is Sheila Layton, who's Luma, the blonde-haired iMorg. Yes, they're iMorg? Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I think it's supposed to be like male, female.
Yeah.
Though I
you're
will
not
say one
Morg.
thing that annoyed me. So they're like, what is male? What is female? You're not iMorg. You're not Morg. There's a moment when the lead baby woman's name is Kara. She goes, watch them or whatever while she's leaving the room. And the Morg goes, yes, mistress. And I was like, what's mistress?
Funny thing about that scene, I believe the one who says yes, mistress, is a guy named Pete Kellett, who's a regular background actor. The other actor in that scene, uncredited, is Sid Haig, who's a huge B-movie horror person. Most recently known for all of the Rob Zombie flicks. He's like the older creepy guy in the newer Rob Zombie flicks. Died a few years ago. But that's Sid Haig, the other one who does not say anything in that scene. But yeah, it's yes, mistress, which is correct, except for all of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Sheila Layton as Luma does some Beverly Hillbillies, Green Hornet, Man from U.N.C.L.E. That's James Darris, who's credited as Creature, but that's the Morg that we meet that Kirk talks to in the beginning. He did Mission Impossible and Mannix. And then our main iMorg, Kara, is Marge Doucet. Started her career in Hollywood as a small part in the Elvis movie Clambake. She films this episode, and a year after that goes on to become a soap opera megastar. 83 episodes, Santa Barbara, 60 of All My Children, 167 episodes of Guiding Light.
Yeah, she has a soap
Guiding
opera.
Light. Oh my God.
She
what
has
a
a soap
blast
opera
from the past.
face.
Yeah.
I was thinking about soap operas the other day. I think it's actually a shame that they don't really exist anymore.
I mean, they kind of do. Daytime soaps have died a lot, but the thing that happens now is there's a lot of primetime, nighttime soap operas, which people don't recognize as soap operas. Like
No, but I just mean
Grey's
like
Anatomy.
I know that there's there are things that you have nostalgia for, like malls and soap operas, and the world has changed for the good in a lot of ways, not in other ways, but there's just something that hits that nostalgic thing for me where I'm like, soap operas. Mm-hmm. What an incredible.
It's funny, my daycare provider and I were just talking about that a couple of days ago also, about how those don't like really exist anymore. Her favorite one was Passions.
Oh my God,
and
Passions.
that's my favorite one.
Anytime
I was like,
anybody
this is
says
how you're raising
my
my
favorite,
child.
it's always followed by Passions.
Because it was ridiculous.
It's awesome.
It was memorable for how fucking ridiculous
They were
it
trapped
was.
in a hole with a bunch of ghosts. It was crazy.
You are so far away from your microphone.
I try to sit like this when Bobby's talking, so I'm not just like all up in the microphone.
We're good. I've balanced levels as needed as we go on. We're good.
Bobby's used to this.
Marge was a certified horse girl from Russell, Kansas, homecoming queen at University of Kansas, and then was a founding member in the late 1960s of an LA comedy improv group called The Session. The Session's members include Rob Reiner, Richard Dreyfuss, Larry Bishop, Dave Arkin, Phil Mishkin, Richard Mishkin, and Bobby Shaw Chance. So like a huge boom in the improv scene, and being a foundational member of that company is insane. She was also on the Kansas University Advisory Board for Theater Arts and has done work with AIDS foundations and things like that. So like a good person. Went on to do cool shit. Wrapping up things with her, according to her official website, she had not viewed this episode after shooting it at all until the 1990s when a fan sent her a VHS of it. And then like she reviewed it on that VHS tape.
That's cute.
And of course she had been hounded the rest of her career for autographs and things like that. So she was under the impression that this episode was really well liked and very, very popular. She described it as having fun in the role and that she was delighted with the costume and boots designed for her. It was just a week on the job for her. Like, not memorable at all. And then kind of to bolster some of the points that we've been talking about, I found a Reddit thread from like a year ago discussing this episode. Like we were saying, modern fandom's kind of revisiting these things. And the title of the thread is Spock's brain actually that bad? And modern consensus is, no, it's not that bad. It kind of fails at what it wants to do, but it's bad in a fun way because of the camp and not bad in a bad way, like the Omega Glory or some of the other episodes that we've been talking about that are just shit now.
It's just one, like I said earlier, it's just one of those Star Trek things that became this like truth that's not an actual truth. So it became this like cultural touch point for people who are not actually in the fandom or whatever. Like
It's an easy answer to the question.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to know everything, but it's just wrong.
It's
Not
fine.
the
It's
worst
just wrong.
episode by far.
No. Moving on to Babylon.
Fine.
Original air date February 15, 2016. Written by Chris Carter. Directed by Chris Carter. It's your boy. Right off the bat, when Agents Miller and Einstein walk in and Scully replies to them, "Nobody here but FBI's most wanted." Of course, this is a callback to what Mulder says in the very first lines to Scully in the very first episode of The X-Files. So right away, they're going for those big character moments. Right away, they're trying.
Yeah, again, it's the look, we know you love this. We're really pushing some of the heavy-handed fan service stuff.
Agent Miller, you would think they would go for like a pun with Einstein and Miller or whatever. They don't, because his name is Agent Kid Miller, which is the name of David Duchovny's son. Kid Miller Duchovny. So they just use his name. Much like I did with the Star Trek episode, I found a Reddit thread from around the time this episode was released, because that's only 9 years ago, about people discussing their feelings on the episode. It's interesting because they weren't really focusing on the Islamophobia at the time. A lot of the fan outrage and its badness comes from Miller and Einstein being written the way that they were written, specifically Einstein being so
she's
abrasive.
Heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And again, Lauren Ambrose is a good actress. This is like a fact. It's just she was given this like clunky dialogue.
Yeah, and also just nonsensical character motivation shifts that don't really hold up to her being this Scully parallel that she's presented as. None of that works. But also, like Erin talked about, a lot of people being really pissed that this is how they bring the lone gunman back, and this is what they use Skinner for in this season. A lot of people being like, I actually kind of liked it, like you were talking about. I had fun in certain moments or whatever. And a lot of people being like, no, this is kind of pissing in our mouths. We did not. Yeah. So it was interesting to be able to read that and have that still exist online. Going into some casting stuff, I know I usually do huge deep dives into the lower cast of big cast episodes like this. At a certain point, I just cut off doing that because it was the fucking country montage while we were rewatching it again, and I just like couldn't. So we start with Marcy T. House, who is credited as the Angry Woman. She also plays the headmistress in the Monster High movies and the mainland doctor on Midnight Mass. She was also a sheriff in X-Files, I Want to Believe.
Oh.
That is Gary Chalk as Mad Dog, the radio DJ. He had previously played Richard Powell in a Millennium episode. Now we're in X-Files episodes that happen after Millennium, so some of these people did Millennium first and then came back. And with Sheriff Williams in Freddy vs. Jason, Timothy Duggan in the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie, and holy shit, what a voice actor. Optimus Primal on Beast Wars, like all Beast Wars. Various voices in 90s cartoons like the Mega Man series, Double Dragon, Exo Squad, King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, Slash on Reboot, so much. Huge voice actor. Great. The mom is Nina Nayabi. She does a lot of short film work while also doing TV guest roles and things like that. That's Arton John as Shiraz, who also does good with what he's given and also had to get
super cute. I know that's like not the point of this, but I was like,
He was very
he
cute.
has a nice profile, really like shapely nose.
When he started to make the peanut butter sandwich, I was like, we got a Luigi situation on our hands here.
Oh no.
Really cute.
A bunch of photos of him in his IMDb profile is him in like the bombed out makeup, just standing smiling next to Robbie Amell. It's really funny.
The makeup looks fucking good.
Mm-hmm. Right around this time this year, I actually want to go back and watch this. He was in a very successful sci-fi short film, 2B, probably like a to be or not to be type thing or whatever. But it won it was nominated for a bunch and it won a bunch of awards around the time. So that was this same year. It might have gotten him this job. Who knows? Cool. He was also Anthony on the 2017 Death Note, Ian on DC Legends of Tomorrow, a waiter in an Arrow episode, and in the film Love and Bloom. Also does voices and face acting for Leander in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Monty in Watch Dogs Legions. So those are like two huge parts in those video games. He was also in a Supernatural episode. Season 8, episode 21, The Great Escapist. He plays a demon technician.
Dream job.
Dream job.
Demon technician.
Absolutely, yes. Moving on, as the nurse, as the horrendously racist nurse that's kind of like laughed off and pushed off the room for being a tin hat fucking weirdo.
A comedy thing with Scully. It's like, this is not comedy.
And yeah,
I think it's with Einstein, the comedy thing.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
it is
okay.
it
The
is
other
with
one,
Einstein.
Yeah, the other one.
But it is put forth, again, like we talked about, as, oh my God, look at this ridiculous racist person or whatever, when it is now just the normal racists that we live around.
Yeah.
Played by Janet Kidder. Janet Kidder, most recently, was the conniving Andorian Osira from Star Trek Discovery. She's a huge part in Star Trek Discovery. Also Ann Sadler in Continuum, which I was huge into for a little bit. Diane in Bride of Chucky. She does a lot of old sci-fi, including Earth Final Conflict and the Tom Stone shows. And yes, she is Margot Kidder's niece. And if you put pictures of them up side by side, the resemblance is definitely there. Also does a Supernatural episode, season 6, episode 8, All Dogs Go to Heaven, plays Mary Duran.
If I'm remembering correctly, that's the one where Dean can hear dogs talking.
That would make sense by title alone.
Season 6 is bad, but has good things. Season 6 is my least favorite season, but has things going for it, like a lot of Mitch Pileggi. And then there are these episodes that are really fun, but the overall arc of season 6, the like mother of monsters thing, they like really shit the bed on. It could have been really good, and they did a bad job. But there is a scene where Dean and a dog stick their head out the window and pant together.
That sounds like a good job to me.
Yeah. No, that episode is fun.
Yeah. We see the two aggressive men in suits that were clearly not agents, that were clearly horrible people sent there to do something awful. The white agent in there is played by Shane Jones, also does work on Fringe, Tomorrow People, Arrow, guest roles all over, was in 2 Supernatural episodes. Season 7, episode 17, The Born Again Identity, he plays a demon medic, also another dream job. And then season 12, episode 6, celebrating the life of Asa Fox, he plays Asa Fox.
I do not remember.
Hell yeah. I love
Asa
that.
Fox?
ASAFOX.
What the fuck? Oh, it's okay. I don't remember this episode specifically, but the idea of this episode is to be like, Asa Fox is a hunter and he dies, so then a bunch of hunters come together to like mourn him, and then that's like just like Dean and Sam feeling like alone or whatever. Being like, who will come out to my funeral? And the answer is no one, because Sam doesn't invite anybody. And that's fucked up.
That is fucked up.
The answer is no one, because Sam is a selfish little bitch. Anyways.
The other The other man in suit is played by Stephen Lobo. Specifically from this, he's Officer Kellogg because he played a character named Kellogg in a TV show I mentioned earlier, Continuum. Continuum was a great sci-fi show. It was also Canadian shot, so there's a lot of overlap in these.
Canada.
And also has a lot of Leo nominations and awards. He won Best Guest Performance by a Male in a Dramatic Series in 2023 for his episode of Alert Missing Persons, and has Leo nominations dating back from like 2012. So he's doing good doing guest TV work. We see Eric Brecker as Agent Brem, the very aggressive, kind of thin-faced man that we see. Bremv. I don't know how you're supposed to say that. He's Reynolds on SG-1 in one of the SG-1's movies. Smaller roles on X-Men Wolverine Origins, the 2014 Godzilla Scary Movie 3, Chew in Battlestar Galactica reboot. He's also done Millennium episodes previously and was in the X-Files episodes, Hunger. He was Hunziker in the Millennium episode, Paper Dove. Was Dark Suited Man #1 in the X-Files episodes Christmas Carol and Emily. Christmas Carol being the complete downer Dana Scully Christmas episode.
Yep.
It's fucking brutal. Getting on to our two main guest agents now, we'll start with Robbie Amell. Yes, Stephen Amell's cousin. But he's also done a bunch of acting himself, and I think he's
For a
great.
cousin, they look very similar.
Yeah.
They do look a lot alike.
I don't look like any
So
of my cousins.
they have two movies that they've done together that they've starred together called Code 8, where it's very much like the two of them. But he also returns to the X-Files in the 2 episodes after this, the season finale, My Struggle 2, the season opener for season 11, My Struggle 3. Both of them are toned down and better written in those episodes amidst a complete and horrid wash of bullshit X-Files lore and mythology stuff.
Yeah.
This same year, he's in a great hour-and-a-half comfort level B sci-fi movie called Arc. I recommend it. It was fun. He started acting as a kid at like 16. His first role was in Cheaper by the Dozen 2, TV shows like Life with Derek and True Jackson VP. But he also, in the 2010s, voiced Fred in Scooby-Doo in a couple of Scooby-Doo animated flicks and video games. I think that's really good casting.
I think that's great
he's
casting.
perfect.
Also, Fred is my favorite member of the...
Hell yeah. 22 episodes as the main character in Tomorrow People. He was most recently in the Resident Evil Raccoon City movie. Of course, he did Flash as Firestorm, was in the Witcher series, and also those Code 8 movies that I talked about earlier. And then that brings us to Lauren Ambrose as Agent Elizabeth Einstein. Of course, at this point was most widely known for playing Claire Fisher in 6 Feet Under and her 7-run episodes on Torchwood. She's returns for My Struggle in 2 and 3, but then goes on to have a fantastic career, known mostly recently for Servant, and is also really good in Yellow Jackets. Performing arts student and classically trained singer from Connecticut, she then moved to New York, where one of her first stage roles was in a play called Exit the King, opposite Susan fucking Sarandon and Jeffrey fucking Rush. Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
She was nominated for a Tony several years ago for her role in, I want to say, The King and I, and it was nuts to watch her perform on the Tonys, because I had no idea she was classically trained. She just walks out and is like, my voice is incredible, and everyone was like, what the fuck just happened?
I loved 6 Feet Under. That'd be a show that would be interesting to see if it holds up.
Yeah.
On a rewatch.
To go back and watch it. Yeah.
Some of it would.
Because it was definitely made to like push boundaries, especially emotional ones at the time it was released.
Also, we're older, and like some of that shit is just gonna hit different. Like the scene where, oh my god, I'm totally blanking on his name. The guy who plays Dexter.
Michael.
Yeah. Michael C.
Hall.
Yeah, that's what I thought. There, after he gets like assaulted and stalked, there's that scene where he's in the car having a fucking panic attack. That didn't affect me before. That might actually make me have a panic attack now. And that's what I mean by like getting older and watching it too. Like you just are going to connect in different ways. Also, it's the best ending of any TV series ever. Straight up.
100%. I can't think of a better one.
I can't either.
And it was
I've seen some good ones, but that one's the best.
It was so rare that TV shows ended when they should at the time that got put out.
Yes, absolutely.
And not get dragged on, because it ended while it was still immensely popular.
And it's interesting because people talk about rewatching Godfather, The Sopranos. People talk about rewatching Sex and the City. People talk about rewatching like True Blood. I barely hear anybody talk about 6 Feet Under. Maybe it's because it ended so satisfying. Everybody just felt really good.
There's less
afterwards, and they were
discourse.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to revisit it.
Well, there was also at the time, because it was
Not
like
that it was perfect. There were some shit seasons.
yeah, and like there's things inside of it I don't love, but it also existed at a time where like Lost, where you could put extra stuff on the internet and like there's extra content for it if you're willing to engage with it. But HBO at the end, one of the things I love the most about the series ending is that HBO published obituaries for everybody, and so you had to see the deaths, but then you got like Michael C. Hall's character, like you learn that he's remarried and has had children with this person, and
his
like
husband's death at the end sucks.
oh my god,
So
it is
sad.
brutal. It's so brutal, but we should rewatch that. It's really good.
Yeah, I know Nick loved that show.
Anyway.
And then I'll end my section with a really funny personal story that involves this episode of The X-Files explicitly.
Oh, yeah.
Erin and I talked about this earlier, but I'm going to share it with you now because you know the context very fucking well. So this came out in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes have trouble with media that I really love finishing it. I did the same thing with the Dark Tower novels. I pushed off finishing the last book for a while. For this specifically, I avoided watching these 2 newer seasons of The X-Files as they were coming out until I just binged them all at once. I binged them all at once during a road trip that I took on several buses when we got booked in New York to do the Nerd Burlesque Festival.
Where you have my fucking giant Harley hammer with you?
So I had made the decision not to fly to New York. I was taking a couple of buses. I had Stell's giant Harley hammer, but also I was going earlier because it was someone who I was dating's birthday, and I was going to hang out with them during that time. I watched this episode in a middle of nowhere bus station in a layover between my buses. I got so downtrodden at this. This was everything that I had feared them bringing back the show made manifest. It was awful. I knew this was the episode the lone gunmen were supposed to be in. I knew Skinner was supposed to be in. The fact that they did this and they gave us this felt so awful that I missed my fucking bus. And I had to stay there for an extra 2 hours.
The giant, like, and when I say giant Harley hammer, I mean it's like as tall as me. Like it's huge. It's made out of like couch cushions. They're just comical with like a literal cartoon fucking hammer.
I took several pictures of that thing strapped to like my bag on my journey. It's kind of just like take me around. But yeah, saying nothing else about how that New York trip went, I'll say that's how it kind of started for me.
We did good in that show.
Oh yeah, we did great in the festival itself. It was fantastic.
What a messy trip.
What a messy episode. Anyways, thanks.
Tower of Babel in Babylon, scattering people violently so as never to speak a common language.
Punishing man for his hubris.
Well, that lesson didn't stick.
All right, now it's time for our overall thoughts. So the themes stay together pretty good. Mm-hmm. Who greenlit this? Obviously, like there's a lot of people who could have said some things in the production meetings, but then, like we said, they are bad, but they have these like moments within them, and they just didn't commit maybe to as hard as they should have.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're both who greenlit this, but it is funny that we both picked episodes that couldn't decide whether they were comedy or dramatic, which I would not have expected. Like these 2 stupid ass episodes.
Yeah, they're not good, but they're not
horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, Babylon, questionable in some places, but
as a super fan, would this episode be on your must-watch list?
No, it wouldn't. I would show it to someone again because of all the Technicolor, and like I actually think it is next question, like series defining. Like there is a lot of stuff in this that's
it's series defining in terms of like apocrypha,
yeah,
and like or like legacy, not apocrypha. It's series defining in legacy because people have this huge opinion about it. But it's it's such a mid to low episode to have so much vitriol.
Yeah.
No, I'm not showing people this. I'm not watching this.
I was gonna say, I was like,
Skinner's in this for 2 minutes. My must-watch list has Skinner in it.
You do have to watch this very specific section. Do you feel like there's a series-defining episode for the X-Files?
Series-defining moment in this episode?
You got it. Whatever.
I don't know. Probably them like holding hands talking about God at the end.
Yeah.
That seems pretty on brand.
Mm-hmm. I would say Mulder's trip also is very like that is who Mulder is. Like, also the way he communicated of just popping it in his mouth and was like, guess what, motherfucker?
Like, maybe we shouldn't. He just sticks his tongue out. He's already taken it.
Guess what? Does this affirm your OTP?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't really have an OTP when it comes to X-Files, so it doesn't.
Just Skinner existing on his own.
Yeah, he's there.
Leaning over a hospital bed, nursing Mulder back into consciousness.
Not the first time he's done that, also.
I know, but I'm just saying, if
Didn't bring flowers this time. He was like, I'm over this.
Again, acknowledging the OTP of the X-Files is Mulder and Scully, and I want them to get together. I'm happy for them, so yes. But I'm never reading Scully and Mulder fic. Like, that's not. So, like, my OTP and, like, the idea of the OTP of the X-Files are, like, different.
Yeah.
I read a lot of fics of Skinner and Scully after Mulder, like, disappeared, where they're just interrogating their feelings and then also fucking. Their feelings about Mulder and then fucking. Can't tell me that's not canon. Does this affirm your OTP?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's Bones and Kirk looking for their husband in space. Like, definitely. It's there's not even anything that, like, kicks at it. Like, this is just an OTP episode.
Is this episode a fuck fine or a flop?
It's fine. Hot take, it's fine.
Yeah. I would say that this is fine, too, to be honest. I would say Babylon is fine.
It's surprising. I feel like we both thought, like, these will both be a flop, but they weren't really.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Islamophobia, very bad. But there's a lot in it that makes it watchable. So because it's watchable, I don't know if I can identify it as a flop.
Yeah.
And like Bobby said, the reason a lot of people hate it, it doesn't even have anything to do with the Islamophobia. It's because of the way it was marketed and their longtime love of the X-Files.
Yep. Yeah, I feel same thing. There's a lot of stuff inside of this that's watchable. It's not, like, offensive. It's just fine.
Spock's brain's not offensive.
Yes. Sorry, no.
I just want to
no
clarify for
There's a lot that's offensive about Babylon. That's why I picked this episode for this theme. You can find us on the internet. You can follow us, for now, on Instagram and interact with the show using #XTrexPod. You can find me also for now at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram at NYD Productions.
Isn't that what I said?
No, you forgot to say the actual tag, which is fine.
Oh.
Because we say it in every episode. You can find me on Blue Sky, Tumblr, and for now on Instagram.
Say at Stella Cheeks.
At Stella Cheeks.
Yeah.
Wow,
This outro is a mess.
Keep it.
This is a mess.
This is the vibe after watching both of those
Both
episodes.
of our brains are like,
I'm glad
words.
you're okay. I'm not. You can find me on Blue Sky at Uncle Castlevania. You could also find me on our company Discord, which we have opened up for everyone who wants to come hang out with us. Send us a message or look at our social media stuff. We'll post a link there where you can join up. If you do not want constant updates on what we're doing, but monthly updates on what we're doing, you could also subscribe to our monthly newsletter at nydproductions.beehive.com. That's beehive, BEEHIIV.com for updates on things like what we've been listening to, playing, reading, upcoming episodes that month, fun other tidbits, and also just what we are
Our health updates.
feeling.
Our health updates.
Health updates, both physical and mental.
You can also email us at xtrexpod with questions or comments. I said before, I don't have a fic where Spock's body is being used like a robot for sex purposes, but I could probably find one. I do have a supernatural fic like that, though, if you want that.
Speaking of links and fics,
Stella.
don't hate the player,
I
hate
would have
the
to
game.
find
I
it.
do.
I
do hate the
I have a very distinct memory of what it is. I could probably find it pretty easily. Warning for ABO content.
Warning for ABO content. Again, another great reason to join the Discord is the trading of those fics, and also now Erin's live reaction readings of some of them. Join the Discord just for that.
5K was a lot is hilarious to
You
me.
sent me like a 1,000 last time, and you told me you were getting me short ones.
5K to me is short.
That's crazy.
5K to me is a morsel.
Insane. Absolutely insane. No,
So,
thank you.
This is another episode
It's
where
worth it, though. You know it.
I love how you were waiting for me to talk and then had another
know,
point
for
to
real.
say.
I wasn't actually
Fuck you,
waiting for
Bobby.
to talk, but that's just like what was happening.
This man, I can talk over him.
It's true. Episodes like this, I love recording because there's always the question of what's actually going to make it in the episode. If you're interested in what doesn't make it into episodes, also NYD extras, our script notes, which go over all of the links and things we've talked about. You can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NYDProductions, where you can get all of that and more for at least $1.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find that this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for the famous person episode.
Question mark, question mark.
In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.
I belong with you, you belong with me, you're my sweet
Hot dogs!
I belong with you, you belong with me, you're my sweet
Magic mushrooms.
Hey!
Run.